you very much indeed. Thank you. How kind. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. That's so sweet of you. God bless you. Don't call me. I hope you all agree that you've had the luxury and pleasure of witnessing two extraordinary films, revealing remarkable passion in each one of them. There's the original passion and extraordinary quality of Oscar Wilde's original masterpiece, which is, it's as if it had been scrubbed clean of all the years and its reputation for ornateness, and has revealed something quite remarkably beautiful and incredibly modern and classic, and beautifully performed with an extraordinary hypnotic and rhythmic subtlety that I'd never thought or imagined I would ever see. And you've also seen a documentary which is in turn hilarious and tragic and only to be watched through fingers of disbelief. You'll be pleased to know that Barry Navini and Robert Fox, the producers, are still here, hugging Al and very happy, all good friends, despite the evidence of the film you saw. It's all part of the process that Al, I know, will talk about. There's so little time and so much to talk about, and I can't forgive myself for introducing here these two wonderful people this way, but it is the inevitable, and he's been introduced this way, I dare say, a million times. But please say hello to my little friends, Al Pacino and Jessica Chastain. Welcome to both of you. I think you can tell from that extraordinary response just how much those two films meant to this audience.
Well, not quite.
You want a bit more. You want a bit more.
No, not more. Just, you never know.
You don't know. You think that's English politeness, do you?
No,
believe me?
no.
Oh, believe me, no.
Not that
was
thought
real.
didn't go through my mind.
Firstly, apologies for the traffic. Isn't always that bad. Secondly, we better get straight down to our mouton, as the French say. If you can tell us how long ago you first encountered the play.
Well, it was here, of all places, in London, Stephen Burkhoff's wonderful, wonderful production of Salome. And I knew Stephen, I still do. And he and I had done a couple of things together, and I was in a movie with him, and I saw the play. And I wasn't expecting it. I didn't even know who wrote it. Yeah. So I was sitting there, witnessing something I'd never seen before, and hearing words that I've never heard before. I mean, Shakespeare, of course, but in this fashion, with this, these ideas and these conceits. So I was just mesmerized. I was stunned by it. And like a lot of the audience are riveted. When you play this in the theater, you see audiences tend to really listen to it. So there I was thinking, and then halfway through it, I thought, wait a minute, whoever this person is, this is a prophet. Yeah. And I said, I really want to meet this person. So when the play was over, I looked down at the program to see who wrote it, and well, I couldn't meet him. You know.
Oddly enough, he's always top of the list of people. People who would like they would like as a dinner companion or would like to meet. It's always Oscar Wilde.
Yeah, this guy would go to parlors and talk.
But it's not just his wit. It's the kindness and the level gaze with which he met those to whom he spoke. Yeah. They always said that there's a sort of judgment you make about brilliant people, and there are those who, when you leave the dinner table, you feel that high because they're so brilliant, and there are those who make you feel that high because they draw you up, and he was like that. Yes. So, had you any knowledge of the play before you got this call? You're now such a well-known Hollywood actress, but of course at the time this was the first job you did, basically, wasn't it? You were asked to go up in front of Al Pacino.
Yeah, I'd gone to Juilliard and I studied the classics. I studied Oscar Wilde, but I hadn't read this play. So importance of being earnest and all the other work. And I got a call that Al Pacino was doing Salome and had requested for me to come in and to audition. which I later found out was, thank goodness for Marta Keller, who had suggested me. And so I said, great. First of all, that's amazing. And thinking, then I thought, well, definitely the part must not be that great, because who am I? And I started reading it, and it was immediately like, oh my God, what am I about to do? So that, I mean, that was the beginning for me.
See, not too many actors or people are aware of that play. That we're all aware of Oscar Wilde. It's funny, it doesn't get around much. And you know, there are many movies made of it. There's about 28 silent films made of it. As you can see, some of my footage in there.
And as you mentioned, it was one of the most famous operas in the entire opera repertoire. Was the Richard Strauss, which is one of his earliest and greatest. And of course, it is a famous image, and Aubrey Beardsley did a drawing of it, of course. And we all know the sort of head on a plate, and people make jokes about it and so on. But it is, when you see it, it is ferociously original and extraordinary, ferociously so. And also, it's a family dynastic saga. The marvellous performance by Roxanne Hartwood to note as Herodias. The sort of little nagging away. Why must you look at her so? Why do you look at her?
Yes.
It's so familiar. You think this is extraordinary. In this language is contained both a sort of biblical memorial thing, all this stuff about Chalcedony and Jasper and Vermilion and so on. And yet it seems so modern. Is this something you strove to do through rehearsal?
No.
Good.
It sort of happened, and you see, again, with this kind of prophetic thing, people are coming up to me now thinking all the names and religions and places in this movie that are now very familiar to us, you know. And even while I was doing it, they were a bit, they weren't as familiar to me as they are today. So.
And you know from the very first, sort of, as it were, page, the very first exchange, that somehow you know this is not going to end happily. Even if you sort of don't know the story, you can just tell it sets itself up, but you're not quite sure exactly how it's going to end, and how it does end is it's like a magnificent symphonic ending. It's like a sort of shattering Bruckner chord or something.
Yes.
Just brilliant.
Pretty dysfunctional.
Yeah, I'd say. And that, I mean...
Which we all can relate to.
Well, I was going to say, there's a famous story which repeats itself diagonally, and there was one of the greatest BBC series ever made. It was called I, Claudius. I don't know if you ever saw it.
Yes, of course. Yes.
And it was about the dynasties, you'd say, or dynasties, you'd say, of the Caesars from Augustus to Nero. And apparently, Pullman, who wrote the script of it, and the producers, said to the actors, look, you're all being a bit sort of Roman about this. Try and think of this family as being a bit like a mafia family, with all their power. And they went, oh, Brian Blessing, oh, I got it now. And
English
then,
mafia.
And then I read that Francis Ford Coppola said to you and the cast of The Godfather, when you were about being this family thing, think of the Roman emperors.
Yes, he did.
Because that's how they thought of themselves. So there's this bizarrely... and of course, this, again, there's a dynastic feeling here of this Herod. Is it the same Herod who orders the massacre of the innocents after Christ is born? It isn't, is it?
No, it's not.
That's Herod Antipas or something.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. So there's so many bloody Herods.
This one was a little nuts.
Yeah.
The others...
Well, was he a bit nuts? I mean...
Well, when you think of it, he was a bit drunk.
He was drunk and he was trapped into a promise. And I wonder, where do you find it in yourself to find... there's the passion you feel for Yoko.
Well, to me, this idea, this conceit of someone with all this power and all these riches asking this little girl to take all this, but please spare the head.
Yeah.
I thought that confrontation was one of the reasons that motivated me even to act it in the first place.
It is the absolute central pivot. It all leads up to that. Because we all know secretly that's what she's going to ask, bring me the head of Yoko.
And I love what Stephen did when he was doing it in the play in London. It doesn't quite work that way in film, that translation to film, is because Stephen started... You know, he started to just, well, I'll give you, and he had a white head and red lips, and more, and more. And it just kept coming. It was coming out of him. And I thought, I see it all. Those diamonds, those emeralds, those, and it was all there, and you see it just coming. It was in the air, and you just felt it. And this girl just keeps saying, "No."
And where do you think that comes from? I mean, it's a sort of absurd thing to ask, perhaps, but we're so used to the idea that actors like to know their motivation, like to sympathise, empathise, or at least agree. I'm asking Jessica this with such a bestial question. There's one thing to feel the passion for this extraordinary voice from the system who eventually is brought up in front of you, to get your mouth so close to his, and for him to be repulsed by you.
I mean, for me, I started with the arc of the character, because that, to me, whenever I approach something, I go, how are they different at the end than they were at the beginning? At the beginning, she comes on stage and talks about the moon as a chaste, pure thing, different from the court. So she wants this life that's chaste and different and not like her mom,
Her mother's, exactly.
which he's kind of against in the beginning. She ends the play kissing a severed head, which is necrophilia. So it's the greatest arc I've ever played as an actress. And to find that, there's so much. You can go into like Freud, like her father was imprisoned in the cistern. So the last time she saw her father, he was in there. So the first guy that comes out of that well, she is gonna be in love with. It's her father, you know? And so for me, like, the dance wasn't just a striptease. It was her first sexual act. It was like her having sex, losing her virginity, but it also was an act of violence because it was murder. So, you know, for me, that's all those little clues brought me to the end, where she's just in this fit of madness, saying, "Finally, I have you. I'm going to get what I wanted." When she's been in this world where she's never gotten what she wanted. Because of her mother, because of her uncle, because of her father. She's always been
the compliant, beautiful
daughter.
Yeah, that's brilliant answer. There it is. It's superb.
I told you I didn't direct this thing.
Well, coming on to that subject, it was an act of fantastic generosity for you to allow us to see Grumpy Owl, Mad Owl, and all shades of owl in between in the second movie, Wild and Salome, in which we see just how difficult and hard a journey and a task it was simply to get it on in the theatre, and then make the filming of it at the same time, and the kind of rouse and the passion and the energy and the changes of mind, and when you suddenly decide, oh, it's not good enough, you want to shoot in the desert. It's just quite something.
You'd have to ask Barry and Robert about that.
They are. Well, I was telling the audience, they are still here because they might have watched the second film and thought that you'd never be on speaking terms again. It's clearly that
but I started their acting career.
They started, they worked with you before on The Merchant of Venice, of course.
Yes.
But you directed that second film, so you could have said, no, don't show me doing that. I looked too angry, and people might think I'm a monster. No, but nobody. I'm not saying people do, but you know, there are vain actors in this world.
I knew we were being photographed all the time, you know, and in this day and age, everybody is now. So, but there I was in this setup, and I thought, well, gee, I'm feeling a little edgy. I'm an actor, right? They got the cameras rolling. I think let's make a meal out of this thing. So I think I just gave it a little more.
Because you'd done it in Looking for Richard, so you'd had some experience of seeing yourself.
Oh, yes, that's true. Looking for Richard, but it was not quite as. The thing about Richard that is somewhat different, that I found daunting in this, a little easier in Richard, although that was very, very difficult. Because it's documentary, you know, and that always takes time. And but in Richard, what I was set out to do, because of this phenomenon in the States, in the United States, of actors, especially people, but actors, being restricted, not wanting to play Shakespeare.
Yeah.
When so many of them can do it, and we're losing so many actors of real gift who would be able to do Shakespeare, find a way. But they've been turned off it, because the American theater, in a way, has not turned off Shakespeare, but has restricted, and you used not now as much, but you couldn't speak like I do, and do a Shakespeare part.
Yeah, you had to put on a ridiculous.
You had to put some English accent on, which wasn't what Shakespeare wrote anyway. So, but that's okay.
Yeah.
It's sort of, you know, and it also was brought about here in such a way, and it's so brilliantly done here, that it was awesome to try to even compare yourself. So you had to find your own way to do it. And I did Richard because I thought there's something out there. I want to see if I can, because when I did do Richard on Broadway, the critic, the Times critic, said Pacino has set Shakespeare back 50 years in this country. That's pretty good compared to some of the others I got for it. But I really enjoyed it. And so I thought, oh, fuck you. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to go out there and make a Richard that you can understand.
Well, it's strange, isn't it? Because you're, the role that I suppose you were first recognised in a huge way was Michael Corleone. And the final image of you leaning against a tree, alone in the Tahoe estate in Godfather 2, a lot of reviewers compared that to Macbeth or Richard III.
Yes.
Didn't they? And they saw that as a kind of modern version of that. And there are a lot, and I know you were having to live alone virtually as a bum when you were a student. And I just wanted to tell a story of when I just wanted to tell
the bum part.
Yeah. You only had a copy
but it's true.
You had a copy of Crime and Punishment Legend, and you must have been tempted to murder somebody to get room, and lodging.
I was going through that Dostoevsky phase, which I still go through.
Raskolnikov.
It's so great, and the Raskolnikov image was great.
Well, there's a gentleman just down the third row back, who's first hand I saw, but we'll come back to others, yes. Microphone being handed to you, so wave your hands now for if there's a second mic. I'm not sure if there is, but anyway, we'll come to you.
Question to both Al and Jessica. How did your performances differ between playing the play for the audience and playing for the cameras? Because with the cameras you have close-ups and you can think about that. Were they both the same performance, or could you adapt it for the cameras?
It was a very strange thing for me. It was my first film I had ever done. So I had the best acting teacher to have, because I got to act on stage with him in the play, and then during the day, we would go to this soundstage and film the play. So I got to see how he changed his performance. And it was the first time I realized I could change things for also someone else's coverage. Like I know, and I think he used it, where when he's saying, I'll give you this and this and this, I remember at one point, because I wanted to own him, felt like I own you now, I'm in charge. And I put my hand on his face, and he looked at me so angry, and I remember thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't have done that. But those moments, I mean, that was the beginning for me to realize that was possible.
The reason everyone in our profession, one of the reasons, obvious reasons we admire Al so much, is that ever since you've had the opportunity to do almost anything you liked, because of the gigantic splash you made with your first major movie after, is you seem always only to have chosen to do things that mattered to you in terms of passion. I don't.
Well, no.
No, you have taken the money, haven't you?
I've taken the money and ran.
Yeah?
I'm still running.
Yeah. That's very honest of you.
Yeah.
But it certainly seems more than most.
Yeah.
I'm sure you must have had the odd pocket money movie, I guess.
Yeah, I did a couple of times not realizing and knowing that I was doing something that wasn't, in a way,
worthy or good enough for you.
You know, sort of what I'm trying to do now is I like this whole idea of us going through cycles. You know, I think it's you say aging is one thing, but cycles is a little bit more civilized.
Yes, I prefer that.
And I think the cycle that I'm going through now is one I went through before in my life, where I won't do anything that I don't feel there's somehow a connection. Yeah. If there's a connection to it, if I can find that in myself to do, I'll do it. Otherwise, I'll just try to do these kind of things and pick up what I can, because I think that's finally come full circle on that, I think.
That's wonderful.
Well,
I was just wondering why, if you had any thoughts on the matter, both of you, why do you think that Wilde chose to have Salome killed right? That was the very last sentence.
Why did Wilde improve on a made-uppy story in a Bible?
I'm thinking about the moral overtones of the divine retribution of the woman suffering for what she did.
Right, we got that.
John the Baptist.
I didn't see it as the woman suffering, actually, because for me, the end speech, I thought a lot about Bosie, and if you look at that end speech, it is so much of a love letter, to another person. And at the end, when she realizes that now, like, even though she's kissing him, it's not what she was wanting. That you can love someone too much. Like, when you try to possess them, you destroy what you loved so much about them. And then her going off into madness, for me, I felt like there was no way back from that for her. So I didn't see it as her being punished for what she did. I saw it more of like being released from the guilt of what she did, perhaps.
And also, it's Herod's only, I mean, it's only 3 words, kill that woman, isn't
Yeah.
it? Yeah. It's that simple. It's a stunning ending, I mean,
Yeah.
really. But what else would you say? You know,
Yes.
it seems such a right ending, doesn't it?
Yes. And we're all done.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, did you go to the original source? I mean, did you look at the Bible or anything?
Well, no, I didn't, because I knew it was based on it. I know the
Yeah.
story. I did look at it, I believe. Been
Yeah.
doing it for so many years.
No,
I think I looked at it, and I knew that it was a marvelous writer's conceit, you know, and I think he got some of the spirit of it there. I didn't think but he wasn't telling that story.
No, he wasn't. Right. Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to belittle your question. Yeah. Who's with you?
Question for Pacino. In the documentary, you talked about how you were trying to transmute your soul into the character. And I wondered if you could articulate when you know as an actor whether you've achieved that. Is it a happy accident, or when do you know if you?
I think I was being a little over dramatic, but we'll finish it.
Sorry. Does it differ at all between classical material like Shakespeare and Wilde versus more contemporary stuff?
Well, I do think that there's something in that. What I was trying to say is, unless you're going for something and the passion is coming through and you're expressing something, whatever it is you found, unless you're doing that, unless you're living through it, at least that's what one hopes for in your craft, in your art, that you go through this, you channel through, and something is revealed in you that comes across. And when that's not there, you brood. When I was a young actor, I would brood. If you don't catch the wave of a thing, and there is technique that allows you to get through certain things, but I prefer it to be more of a. I'm starting to learn a little bit more about improvising in movies.
That's quite surprising to most of us, because we think of you as coming from the Lee Strasberg, Charlie Lawton school of the Actors Studio, which you did come from, and indeed you acted with Lee Strasberg on screen, which is a very rare thing for anybody to have done. And one always associates the actors like Brando and McQueen and yourself and many others who are graduated from that extraordinary academy. Improvisation being kind of part of the technique with which you learned the craft.
Well, yes, it's part of what you can do. It's free to everybody to do. I see, you know, but the idea that you are what you're ultimately doing, and hopefully is if you work this way. There's a lot of various ways to work. Believe me, this is just one way. I describe it as personal, and if it's personal, that's what you're trying to find. The person in you that's in that, you know. So the parts vary, and I think that's the...
Michelangelo put it the best, didn't he, about the David? He said that he was always there in the block of marble. I just had to know which bits to take away.
And there's also what he said, Michelangelo said in a little poem, Lord, free me of myself so I can please thee.
Well, that's pretty damn good.
And that's sort of, I like that.
Yeah, I like that.
Free me of myself, because that's what you're trying to do. The way to free your censor, the way to free is through the unconscious. And that's what we go for. At least I think us method actors. I don't know. I don't call myself that. I never thought of myself as that. When I was a kid, I only wish I could do what I was doing as a kid. I'm always striving to do that, or like my little kids do. But I think there's something about that. And I guess I get a little excited, if you notice, when we're talking about method, because it's been accused of so many things, you know, but it has such variety to it, and everybody is different. And as Lee Strasberg said to me in a film, when I came late, and I got in, we were doing the shooting, and I didn't know my words. And he said, darling, the best thing you can do in acting is learn your words.
That's fantastic.
You know, I mean, and he's totally right. Because once you learn your words, you can forget them, right? It's like the ballet dancer learns and struggles and works so hard with the pliés.
My father did business with Hyman Roth, but he never trusted Hyman Roth. Sorry, I had to get it out.
Oh, I love it.
Listen, you won't be surprised to know the gesture that I've just been given to show that we're about to end, which is that, rather appropriately.
I felt it.
Our stage manager just sliced the head off this, this amazing evening. And Al and I agreed that we would end with me just reading very briefly, because his spirit, I think, is the one whom we most celebrate in this wonderful evening. Al's, of course, Jessica's transcendent, luminous performance. But I just wanted to read the last paragraph of Richard Ellman's biography of Oscar Wilde. I think it is the best last paragraph of any biography. And if you could live a life that earned it, didn't matter how you would die. We inherit his struggle to achieve supreme fictions in art, to associate art with social change, to bring together individual and social impulse, to save what is eccentric and singular from being sanitized and standardized, to replace a morality of severity by one of sympathy. He belongs more to our world than to Victoria's. Now, beyond the reach of scandal, his best writings validated by time, he comes before us still, a towering figure, laughing and weeping, with parables and paradoxes, so generous, so amusing, and so right. That's Oscar. So we all, So all of us will toast Oscar tonight, I hope, when we get home, and we will also unquestionably toast the remarkable talent of Jessica Chastain and Al Pacino. Yeah,